Hello, and welcome to part one of Howard House Museum's contribution to the University of Akron's Rethinking Race, Black, White, and Beyond, a virtual forum in which race and race-related issues can be discussed, examined, and hopefully better understood. Rethinking Race hopes to engage the public with important topics such as diversity in the workplace and awareness of issues in culture. My name is Tina Reno. I'm a literary historian, Guild board member, and education volunteer with the Howard House Museum here at the University of Akron. I have been conducting a history of domestic service tours of the Howard House Museum as part of Rethinking Race since 2017. However, this will be the first year that we are conducting the tour virtually. Some years we called this tour a Backstairs tour because we explore the servants' quarters and servants' spaces, which, in historic homes, like the Howard House Museum, typically used the backstairs. The backstairs differed from the front stairs, just as the rooms that surrounded the backstairs differed from the rooms that surrounded the front stairs. The rooms at the front of the house are the rooms you see on an ordinary tour of any historic home, which is to say that they are more elaborately decorated, and the art, the furnishings, were originally more expensive to buy. The rooms around the backstairs typically had little to no ornamentation because they were servant spaces, and the family that lived in the house would rarely see those spaces, and the guests of the family never would. Backstairs tour guests in previous years entered through the back door, which was sometimes called the service entrance. Servants, or rather household staff, were expected to use the back door, a practice which you might recognize immediately has connotations of both race and class. Historically, Black, Indigenous people of color were prohibited from using the front door to many establishments as a way of maintaining white supremacy. BIPOC is an acronym that stands for Black, Indigenous People of Color, and a term you will hear me use throughout our tour. People use the term BIPOC to acknowledge that not all people of color face equal levels of injustice. The term BIPOC is significant in recognizing that Black and Indigenous people are severely impacted by systemic racial injustices. BIPOC were members of the Howard House's household staff at various times during the 100+ years that the family lived in this house, but did not make up its entirety. Completely BIPOC household staff was a more common practice in the southern United States. Howard House was built in 1871, after the Civil War, during a time when white Americans feared Black migration from the South. Consequently, domestic service work agencies met European immigrants as they entered the country and recruited them into domestic service to keep households white. Many European immigrant women became domestic service workers in northeastern cities. These women would send remittances home to their families who were still in Europe. Domestic service came to be labeled as immigrant women's work in the North. American-born white women might enter domestic service for a few years before leaving to get married. But married or not, European immigrant women often had to do domestic work for their whole lives. Only their American-born white children had the intrinsic freedom to go into other occupations. Now, I was careful to say often had to, and to mention the freedom of their children's social mobility as intrinsic, because there were exceptions. At Howard House Museum, the most notable exception was Blanche Howard. Born Blanche Eugenie Bruat in Valentiny, France, Blanche immigrated to the United States with her family when she was very young. She attended a one-room school in Akron and married Milton Otis Howard, Director and Vice President of the American Cereal Company, in 1880. But she would have first entered Howard House through the back door because she worked here as a seamstress. Blanche became a social feminist, an advocate for education for all, a state legislator who helped to further the equality of the roles of women in Ohio. How was it that she was able to do these things when most European immigrants could not? That's part of what we will be exploring in our History of Domestic Service tour at the Hauer House Museum. I'll see you inside.